The gloves are off, guys. Yamaha have just announced their 2025 JetBlaster. They've stripped the gloves off and they're going straight for Seadoo. That's no exaggeration. There's a lot to unpack here, guys. And the crazy thing about all of this is it could get even more spicy, because in 9 days time, Seadoo are doing their 2025 announcement and we could get that long-awaited Spark-X. Might be wishful thinking, but just imagine, brand new JetBlasters and we get a faster Spark. It's the ultimate showdown and things, like I said, are really heating up. Guys, you know what to do. Hit the subscribe button and let's get into the video. So guys, the big news in the PWC world is Yamaha have just introduced the brand new JetBlaster. Some people are calling it the Spark Killer. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that's my sentiment, but they're definitely shaking things up. Now, a quick history lesson for anyone that's been living under a rock. Seadoo introduced the Seadoo Spark in 2014, and then they introduced the Seadoo Spark Tricks in 2017, and it really was the first time that Seadoo, or any manufacturer, brought back that 90s ethos. In 2014, the market was saturated with big PWCs, and at the time, the hilarious thing is Yamaha condemned the Seadoo Spark. They were very, very vociferous with actually going after Seadoo. Some of the commercials from back then were absolutely hilarious.
And not to add more fuel to the fire, but the Spark is manufactured from recyclable polypropylene plastic. Polypropylene plastic scratches with just a touch of a fingernail. The Spark leaves the factory with a hull and deck that appear to be very brittle.
Certain competitors have questioned the hull of our Seadoo Spark, saying that it can't take a heavy impact without damage. In response to those claims, we've developed highly scientific tests to prove them wrong.
It made for really interesting viewing, but the point that I'm getting at here is Yamaha were so strong with the philosophy, we will not go plastic. Now fast forward to 2024 for the 25 lineup, and Yamaha have gone top deck plastic. Yes, the hull is still fiberglass, but the fact that they've gone to their own variant of plastic says a lot about how well and how ahead of its time Seadoo were in 2014. The Spark at the time was a game changer because it brought back playful, lightweight fun at an affordable price. It got the PWC price right down, and they used some brand new revolutionary tech at the time. Using Polytech was kind of frowned upon, but what a great choice. It lasted from 2014 and it's still going strong now, and it's actually used in the GTI and the bigger craft models, including the GTR X300. So the Polytech must be doing something right. And then the really powerful kick on was in 2017 when Seadoo went, bam, we've nailed the Spark, but here's the tricks, the foot wedges, the even crazier extended VTS, the fact that it really was a true tricks machine. You could do those water wheelies, and if you came from the 90s philosophy, it kind of was the best in class for the new gen 4-stroke. No, it's not a 2-stroke for anyone that loves the channel, but it was a good attempt at recreating that 90s ethos spirit. Now in that period, Yamaha stuck with the heavier designs and they were quite resilient with not adapting the new philosophy. Now the Spark was selling really, really well and it's continued to sell well. Now in 2022, Yamaha introduced the JetBlaster. Now it was a clever move because it used the terminology blaster. Yes, not wave blaster, but JetBlaster. And they kind of lent into the fact that they were making their own playful variation. Now at that point in 2022, 2 years ago, it wasn't Polytech or plastic or their variation of plastic. It was still all fiberglass. And whilst it was a late to the party edition, it was an indication that Yamaha had realized that they didn't have a model that truly capitalized that lightweight, playful fun. Now the reality is it was 8 years later than 2014 when we saw the JetBlaster, and 5 years later than when we saw the Tricks. It was the indication that all Yamaha fans were looking for, that they were upping their game and they were going to try and match Seadoo. Now when the JetBlaster came out in 2022, it actually caught my eye because it brought back the 90s retro vibe. It was super bright with that punchy yellow and the graffiti style graphics, and I was like, yes, I love this. But the issue was, and the biggest criticism, it was basically a slightly more tricked up EX. The grumble was that it didn't truly do anything different to what had actually came before, and it didn't feel like a true independent platform. Now, while Yamaha fans will dispute and say the Gen 1 JetBlaster was as good as the Spark, I'd have to refute that. I've seen them at the lake. They can't do true water wheelies. They're heavier and more cumbersome than the Polytech plastic on the Spark. So whilst they were a nice attempt at emulating the Spark, they just didn't get it right with that first variation. It looked epic, However, it was super annoying. I made a video specifically on this and how the JetBlaster could challenge the Seadoo Spark in the future, which is quite interesting with now what's happened. But I actually said in that video, love the 2022 where they had the bold colors, and then for 23 and onwards, it went to the traditional blue Yamaha colors, but it became safe and boring again. They really had something there and they should have just persevered with it. Now, sure, people will say the JetBlaster was slightly faster than the OG Spark or the current day Spark. I think people say you could do around 55 on it and you can do some mods to get it to go faster. Really, we're like splitting feathers when we talk about breaking through that threshold of 60 miles an hour. They were both there or thereabouts, and when you really think about what a lightweight playful ski should do, the huge USP is extended VTS, doing huge wheelies, jumping big waves and spinning it around. So we've got you up to date. 2022, Yamaha introduced the first variation of the JetBlaster, and then 2024 came around, the year just gone, and we were all super excited on the Seadoo camp. Every 10 years, Seadoo typically do something special. They create a brand new model. Now, in Seadoo's defense, they did give us a facelift version of the Spark, and it had a ton of new features and updates, from the Link Cube permanent mounts on the back, to the waterproof phone storage, to the speaker mount, which you don't have to drill into, to the engine access. They were all really valiant, great additions from what we'd seen on the Gen 1. But for a lot of people, including myself, we'd all been crossing our fingers for a faster Spark, not the features that we saw. And the biggest concern, which I'm still not 100% sure where I sit on this, is a lot of people were saying the Spark's new aesthetic was a regression from what we'd had on the Gen 1, which is a huge problem, right? When you've got Yamaha close behind doing all of these epic things with the JetBlaster, and then we get the 2025, which I'm coming to, don't worry. Seadoo really have got this complexity whereby they're leaning heavily into the features of the new Gen Spark as opposed to the engine performance, and they've changed their aesthetic so much that they've kind of lost that angular fighter pilot futuristic design. So they kind of push themselves into a bit of a precarious position currently. Now, some of you guys might be thinking, faster Spark? What are you on about, Joe? Now, the biggest grumble with the Spark has always been historically, it's just not fast enough. If you compare the Spark to the philosophy of what it was based on, the designers of the Seadoo Spark essentially said, we are making the Spark to bring back the philosophies of the 90s, and they based it on the XP philosophy. Now, they might not have outright admitted that, but in their original promo material, they actually showed old XP footage. Now, the problem is, if you look at a prime XP from the 90s, say a 717, which I actually have, that's a 53 miles an hour ski, and it's only a 700cc two-stroke. And then if you go for the full fat 787, 1996, some which would say the Holy Grail XP, that's a 57 miles an hour ski. And we're talking 30 years ago's performance. And then if you go up to the 951, it starts to get really problematic. Then we're starting to see 63 miles an hour, which for me is kind of the sweet spot of where I want my Spark to go. I'm going off on a tangent. Where I'm going with this is, for a long time now, there's been a rumor of what everyone's calling the Spark X. Now, you could say Spark X is an XP, an abbreviation, but essentially giving us the kick on from what we've seen before. Now, that didn't materialize at the 10th year anniversary of the Spark. Instead, we got the feature updates. So what that essentially created was a landscape for Yamaha to be able to swoop in on the JetBlaster and potentially take the playful performance ski crown. Now, when I say playful performance ski, is a faster Spark would inherently be more of a performance ski. If you can do 63 miles an hour, even 60 miles an hour on one of these lighter skis, that is a hell of a package. Now, for a lot of people, and I'm going to go on a quick diversion here, the RXP riders of the world, or the big fast Yamaha riders of the world, they'll say Spark is an entry-level ski. It's not designed to go fast. Buy a bigger ski. Us playful riders want ultimate connection with the water, with ultimate performance. We don't want 70 miles an hour. We want 60 miles an hour. There's a sweet spot where tippy, lightweight, playful fun marries perfectly with top-end performance. We've got great out-of-the-hole, punchy performance in the Spark, but we don't have that desirable top end that we had in the 90s. That's what we're chasing. So we're officially up to date, right? 2024, Yamaha, mic drop. They go on a mad one, and they've introduced not one, not two, not three, but 4 spec tiers of the JetBlaster. They've scrapped all of their previous naming tiering, and they've now gone for the JetBlaster, but with different name tiers, which I absolutely love. It's a throwback to the 90s where Seadoo did it all the time. You'd have the GS, the GSI, the GSX, the GSX Limited, and that would allow you to know you've got the best variation of that ski, and it was a pride thing. Now, when you look at the JetBlaster, you've got the Deluxe, you've got the Limited, you've got the base model, and you've got the Pro. Now, obviously, we'd all be on the Pros, because we all want to be pros, naturally. But the cool thing they're doing here is they're creating these little divisions in their products, which allows you to tier up. Now, the elephant in the room The JetBlaster looks a lot. I think even the designers and the developers of Yamahas would have probably thought, have we gone too close here? It almost looks like a Gen 1 Spark to the point where you have to double take and think, man, have they essentially employed a previous, product designer from Seadoo? It's borderline too close. Now, I don't want to get into the moralistic, where you fall on this, but ultimately it would have been nicer for JetBlaster and Yamaha to have lent into their historical links with the WaveBlaster. The WaveBlaster in the 90s, right? You had Seadoo, you had the Seadoo HX, and you had the Yamaha WaveBlaster, and they both had their respective lanes, right? You had a HX, which was amazing for what it was, and you had a Blaster, which was amazing for what it was. What's happened here, as Yamaha have kind of lent into a philosophy Seadoo nailed way back in 2014, and they've kind of picked up the candle, is that the right saying? They've kind of taken a design philosophy which is now 10 years old, they've repackaged it under the Yamaha brand name, which is cool. And what normally happens, to be fair, is Seadoos are normally the innovators in the class. They'll do something new, they'll introduce, for example, a speaker system, and then Yamaha will, or the IBR system or the DES system, and Yamaha kind of always react. Now, all of the true engineers out there, and I don't necessarily say I agree or disagree, they'll say Seadoo will do something first, Yamaha will then take 2 or 3 years longer, and they'll perfect it and they'll deliver it to a higher level of reliability, let's just say. Now, that might be true. The JetBlaster might be an ultra reliable version of the Spark. The problem there is the Spark is bloody reliable. People run the Spark up to like 1400 hours. I've had mine for 55 hours, and other than the oil change at the 10 hour, I've had 0 issues with my Spark, and I ride that thing hard. So the problem is, if the Spark is already super reliable, what is the JetBlaster doing that's new? Now, of course, it's going to be an amazing package. It's going to do water wheelies, finally, because it's lighter. It's got all of the equivalent things you need to do tricks, things like foot wedges. But is it a repackaged Spark is the bit I can't quite get out of my head. I'm personally not a huge fan of seeing manufacturers take the philosophy from another product and apply it to their own. I like to see innovation. Even if Yamaha would have done something completely different, that would have still been fresh and unique to themselves. The fact that they've now conceded, the fact that they've now regressed and they've kind of got their own polypropylene version. Now, I know it's just the top deck and it's not the whole. We're still saying, well, actually, they're still using fiberglass for the bottom. They're one step away from going from a full polytech. I keep saying polytech, I shouldn't say polytech. I believe it's called like nanotech or something. Here we go. So it's Nano XL2 trademarked. So it's kind of, it's polytech basically, in my opinion. You can change the modular panels, which is the huge desirable thing with all of these. If you damage something or you want to mix up the colors, that's kind of what they've evaluated. They probably looked at Seadoo and thought, we want our little sub-segment of the market. You're always going to have Yamaha fans that would prefer to be on a Yamaha, and I get it. If there's now an equivalent to the Spark and you're not really a Seadoo fan, perfect, you've got it. But in terms of like next gen innovation with electric around the corner, it doesn't feel particularly fresh, and it feels 14 years, again, these numbers are probably wrong, at least 10 years out of date designs. If you're brand new and you're going into a Yamaha dealer and you're buying a JetBlaster or ordering a JetBlaster, because I'm not going to hit the UK for a little while, you are kind of buying a philosophy that's 10 years out of date. That would be my concern with it. And that's why I'm kind of so frustrated with Seadoo, right? Seadoo had it in their hands in 2024 to say 10-year anniversary, here is the crowning moment. We give Spark that 110 or that 130 true horsepower, at which point Yamaha would have had to react. What we're getting now is essentially more diluted variations of that Trixie model, which is not a great thing. Now, I caveat all of this with saying, I think the JetBlaster looks bloody impressive in terms of aesthetic. I really love the side profile with the swooping, what looks like the aerodynamic paneling. For me, is beautiful. It's every bit as nice as the Gen 1 Spark. I'm not a massive fan of the end caps on the handlebars. That always reminds me of like cheap aftermarket, like biker grips, but that's a small detail. Where I'm going with this is there is a lot to like and get on board with the aesthetic. There's some quirks which I can't unsee. For example, like the seat configuration, you have a 2-up and you have a 3-up. That's Seadoo, right? That's basically what they've done. So I guess maybe where the confusion with all of this is, the philosophy of creating a lightweight playful ski, 2-up, 3-up isn't a terminology exclusively used by, Seadoo, but it's just comical to see it being repackaged by another brand. It's kind of like Samsung taking an iPhone aesthetic and creating a Samsung product with the home screen button in the exact same place. Or is that kind of level of copying? Now, I'm kind of like contradicting myself here, right? Because I generally want to have a go on a JetBlaster. Part of me feels like it might actually be an incredible experience. I know that with that 1000cc, so the JetBlaster, let's get into some of the specs quickly, okay? Because I know some of you guys are going to be coming here to see what my thoughts are on actually what it is. From an aesthetical ecosystem point of view, it's going to be basically like a Spark. You're going to have foot wedges, you're going to have a seat which is going to give you that motocross style, you're going to have a handlebar setup which is very motocross style-esque. The points of differentiation between the two, just quickly, the Yamaha uses a full color screen, which I think is actually better than Seadoo. Seadoo obviously used that black and white screen. I actually think the Seadoo's new screen is not as nice as their original. I've touched on this in this video here, so go give it a watch on what I like and what I dislike about the changes. Yamaha have fallen a little bit short with things like they don't have watertight phone storage. They have a really small front box. It is literally tiny. That is reflective of the fact that Yamaha are only just starting their plastic journey, if that likes. Seadoo started it 10 years ago, so they're that much further ahead. So it's kind of unfair, but equally you would have thought that with Yamaha seeing that Seadoo have introduced waterproof phone storage, I kind of feel like that was an obvious one just to shoehorn in. The point and where I'm going with this is top deck wise, they're going to be very, very similar, I would have thought. If you jump on one, I think they're going to feel very comparable to the other. The one Yamaha quirk that I absolutely love, and Seadoo fans hate that I admit this, is I love the water spray. Put the technical name for that below, but I've always thought that's a real nice trademark detail. Love that Yamaha have that. Probably bugs Seadoo they don't have that quirky detail on their ski, because it is a cool detail. It's a hallmark thing when you see a wave runner out in the water and you see that tail flicking water up, you know it's a Yamaha. Now when we get into the engine, it's obviously a 3-cylinder 1049cc, which I think's got tons of potential to mod and to get it to go 60 miles an hour. So potentially there's more potential in that 1000cc unit than the 900 Ace. We've saw people mod the Spark to death. Things like, you know, remaps, things like impeller changes, things like ribbon deletes. But everything you see people do doesn't really yield much more than like 55 miles an hour top. Now, the only way you get a Spark to do true performance is to turbofy it. I've covered that in a previous video as well. I think turboing your Spark actually diminishes your return. There's a relative value of a Spark. As soon as you start putting a turbo kit on it, you're actually spending way more than the relative value of the ski. You're depreciating the value of the ski. So as much as I've explored turbo kits, I would stay away from that. I'm going off on a tangent. The point I'm getting at here is the JetBlaster might be the safer option to mod and get it to that 60 miles an hour. And I think in years to come, they probably got the scope to just push that up to 60 miles an hour easier than what Spark have with Seadoo with that 900 Ace. With that 900 Ace, we're certainly going to have to see some staple changes to get that performance where we want it to be. Now, the footage I've seen so far, and bear in mind it's quite limited, guys, this ski's been out for days, of the new JetBlaster, it definitely looks as if it can do a proper water wheelie now. Now, that for me has been a big point of contention, right? A lot of people give me a lot of hate and shade about liking to do wheelies. Wheelies are fun. Can you remember as a kid when you get your bike out of the garage and you go for a ride? You do a wheelie. Wheelies are the ultimate thing to do when you grow up to make you feel like a child. And for me, jet skiing is all about feeling like a child. So water wheelies are a must. If you've got extended VTS on a ski and it can't do a wheelie, you failed. The fact that it now looks as if it can do a wheelie, I think that puts it kind of on the same level as the Spark. Whether it's the same level, I don't know. The new Spark trim is fast and it goes up pretty damn vertical. So you guys can argue that out in the comments. When I ride a JetBlaster, I'll let you know, truthfully. As for the spinning of the new JetBlaster, the promo footage of it looks every bit as comparable as the Spark, so I don't think that's going to be a point of contention. Gel coat versus Polytech for the bottom hole. Now, the pros and cons of this, right? I don't personally love the idea of going from a gel coat fiberglass bottom hole to Polytechs, and you have the bond line issues, which we've seen that covered in extensive detail. It's kind of one of the concerns which steered me away from going from a GTR X300, that you are essentially having a Polytech hole, Polytech 2 hole married with a gel coat fiberglass top hole. Is that a good thing? I don't know, is the honest truth. I kind of like that Seadoo is full Polytech. For me, it's kind of like, if you're endorsing the design philosophy, just endorse it. And I think that like Yamaha are dipping a toe and thinking like, shall we go all the way? And the developers are like, no, we need to do this in a two-step phase because it'd be too obvious to Seadoo. Yamaha, it's obvious that you're going for Polytech, well, your own version of Polytech, because you've done it. You know, if you didn't endorse and believe the plastic technology, you wouldn't have used it for your top deck, is the truth of where I think with this. Yamaha have not only adopted the Seadoo philosophy of the Spark, but they've adopted the color palette. It's almost like the designers went, we won't only copy the philosophy, we'll copy the colors as well, because we know that works. We don't want to get anything wrong here with the copy and paste exercise. Or maybe they've used AI. ChatGPT, generate me a color palette that looks like the Seadoo Spark, but doesn't look like the Seadoo Spark. And then they've just gone, bang. That's kind of unfair because it does look cool. I'm just saying, if they would have came with like a 2022 color palette like we saw and gone with loads of graffiti graphics, then it becomes, why not do a blur pool? You know, the 90s Blaster. That was iconic. Then you're really in your own lane. Imagine if Yamaha had gone, here's a JetBlaster, it's in the purple colorway, it is very much the Blaster 1, and it does 60 miles an hour. All of a sudden, overnight, I think you've got all of the Seadoo Tricks frustrated fans going, I want one, take my money. I would certainly be having a very, very difficult thought process at the moment if the JetBlaster came out and it was in a really punchy colorway and it did 60 miles an hour. I'd be saying to Megs, maybe I consider for the 25 season that I go to the JetBlaster. Now, all of this is off of the back of a very, very fresh launch. Now, what I would say, and this is really exciting, is Seadoo are due to announce their 2025 lineup imminently. They have a launch in California. All of the marketing material I've seen has all been geared around like fishing promo. There's a huge subsector of PWC fans that love fishing, specifically in the US. So I feel like Seadoo feel as if they did the 325s last year and they did the new facelift Spark. I don't feel like they owe the consumers a faster Spark yet because the Spark is currently selling on the merit of the feature updates alone. So sadly, I don't, as much as it's a romantic story and I feel like Seadoo go, bang, here's the Spark X, Yamaha, you've copied us, but nice try here. I feel like it's more going to be like, here's some color changes, and it will be a huge missed opportunity. Seadoo literally had in the palm of their hands the opportunity at the 10-year anniversary to kick on. They didn't do it, and it allowed Yamaha to swoop in. Now, ultimately, guys, Seadoo, as much as I'm making it sound super dramatic here, Seadoo don't typically feel threatened by Yamaha. They'll always be the innovators. They'll do the new things. They'll stick with a philosophy that they know to be true, and then in time they will launch these things. If we look at their recent 325 launch, they stuck with the 1630 and they revised the hell out of it to get the performance they want. Now, the thing about all of this is the consensus is that Yamaha are the more reliable of the two. But the truth is, if you look at the Spark and you look at the 1630s, they're reliable engine, guys. So if you're coming at this from a point of view of reliability or like which brand is better, a lot of this is going to be brand loyalty, which brand you like more. I'm naturally slightly more of a Seadoo guy, but that being said, I love my Blaster and I love my WaveRunner, and I honestly would be tempted to go to a JetBlaster if it did 60 miles an hour. So we're going to see what happens, right? We've got a little bit of time to wait until the 2025 announcement for Seadoo. Everyone cross everything that we get a Spark X. If we do, my brain will explode because then you've got all of these new JetBlasters. I truly believe the new JetBlaster is an exciting thing. Like, I'm generally enjoying learning more about it, looking on the Yamaha website. I didn't have that with the previous variation of the JetBlaster, which to me was reflective that it didn't really have anything there that I truly thought that I might jump to. This is a little bit different. I am excited. Guys, I want you to put in the comments what your thoughts are on the Spark, on Seadoo, on Yamaha, on the new JetBlaster, what you think is going to happen with the launch of the new Seadoo. Guys, as always, thank you for watching these videos. I know there's been quite a few videos on the new gen. Obviously, this channel is all about the classics, and the only reason I cover this topic so thoroughly is for me, I'm constantly looking for the best in class new gen 4-stroke that gets us that old school riding characteristics. So if you're someone new coming to the channel for the first time and you're maybe dipping your toe, you've got the option of something new that's going to give you some of the characteristics of the 90s. Now, my first choice would always be an XP or a Blaster from the 90s, but equally, there's a lot of merit in having a new ski in your garage to be your workhorse, to put all of your hours on. It's bomb-proof, like I've done with my Spark. That's exactly why we bought it. And you have all of your old playful skis to dip in and out of. So there really is merit in me covering these topics for you. Hopefully I can get my bum in the seat of a JetBlaster, that'd be even better. I could go all the way to, I think it's Boston at the moment. If I could get Yamaha, if you watch this video and you want me to test out this ski and prove me wrong and say, Joe, you don't know what you're on about, this is way better than the Spark, hit me up, send me a message, and I can make you guys a dedicated video. But until then, this is my honest first thoughts of seeing the JetBlaster. Guys, as always, thank you for watching. Please consider hitting the subscribe button, and whether we're making videos about new or old, the philosophy is always the same. Let's keep the classics alive.